This is Ayani.
And this is Corinne.
And you're listening to Sex, Love, Literature, a pop culture podcast where we take a semi-scholarly look at why
and how
the sex stuff in media matters.
Welcome to the third installment of our divorce comedy miniseries.
Woohoo!
This episode, we're talking about the recently concluded hit Korean drama, Queen of Tears.
While we didn't initially plan to include this drama in our divorce comedy series, it really fit in well with the questions we were asking of the genre. So, we decided to add it in as a bonus. You're welcome.
We consider whether or not Queen of Tears is actually a divorce comedy at all, how it deploys divorce in the development of the main relationship, and what about the second chance romance really resonates. We also touch on some of the other things that did and didn't work for us in the drama as a whole, and have some pretty spicy takes.
If you have big feelings about Queen of Tears, or some spicy takes of your own, let us know on Instagram or Threads at SexLoveLit and on Tumblr at SexLoveLitPodcast.
Don't forget to subscribe to and rate our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any of your other favorite podcast platforms.
And if you have a moment, leave us a review. It can really help convince people to check out our show.
All right, let's dive in.
Hello, SLL listeners. Welcome back to another episode of Sex, Love, Literature. As you heard in the opening, we are taking a slight detour on our divorce comedies mini-series to talk about a show we hadn't initially planned to talk about, and that technically might not be a divorce comedy, but we felt like it might fit in with the overall conversation. So welcome to our discussion of the recently finished K-drama Queen of Tears. Yay!
Yeah!
Yay. We have a variety of mixed feelings about Queen of Tears, I think it's fair to say, but because we're kind of housing this in the overall context of kind of our divorce comedies mini-series, I think we're going to focus specifically on kind of like conversations of divorce here. But then again, Corinne and I digress about things all the time, so we'll see what actually happens over the course of the episode. But I think it's interesting because there's a lot of stuff that we could potentially talk about in the show, about that show. But I think because of why we decided to keep watching it, kind of focusing on the divorce stuff is what we're really most interested in. Does that seem fair to you?
Yeah, that makes sense. We are, I was going to say we're team divorce, but I don't actually think that's true in this case.
We're team divorce for the episode only, if that makes sense.
We're team let's talk about divorce.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, goodness. For such a heavy topic, we really giggle a lot over the course of these, episodes. But but before we dive in to our discussion of divorce in Queen of Tears, why don't we do our favorite segment, What's Sparking Joy? Corinne, can you tell them? What is Sparking Joy? What is it? What is this segment?
So what's sparking joy is when we talk about something that we are watching, reading, or listening to that is currently sparking joy for us. So, Ayani, what is sparking joy for you right now?
What is sparking joy for me right now? There's actually a couple things, but the one that I'm choosing to talk about today is an anime called Dungeon Meshi, or Delicious in Dungeon, that's running on Netflix, or it ran. It's over for right now, the first season anyway. Originally, I was supposed to watch this as a palate cleanser for the second season of Jujutsu Kaisen, but because I don't feel like being sad,
I mean, fair.
I'm just not in the mood to be sad. I haven't returned to Jujutsu Kaisen because I know it's going to be bad. And instead I'm watching Dungeon Meshi, which is a warm, fun kind of medieval fantasy show about this group of adventurers. Think like Dungeons and Dragons style. We got a knight. We've got a, rogue kind of. We've got a wizard, a barbarian. And they're traveling through this dungeon that apparently is kind of, how can I put this without spoiling too much? It's like right in the opening. But this dungeon is apparently an opening to a world or another culture beneath the surface that's been trapped there by an evil wizard or something like that. But no one's been able to get all the way down, and there's this whole now commerce culture that's sprung up around the dungeon. Like there's a marketplace in the dungeon, all that kind of stuff. But anyhow, so they're going to travel through this dungeon, right? One, because one of their comrades got eaten and they want to get them back because apparently reviving is a feature of this world. But also because they're broke. They're not going to buy food from like the town or the market, but they're going to cook and eat monsters as they travel through the dungeon. So what the premise is that like, of course it's about team building and we're friends and we're learning about each other. But also every episode there's some kind of delicious food that is made from the monsters. And then like
so the monsters like look edible? Like how does this work?
They're just creatures. So like one was a cockatrice. What is a cockatrice, the one where it's the chicken with the tail like a snake? I don't know.
Sure, I have no idea.
But there's one that was like just a big chicken with a tail like a snake, and they made like cutlets and some. Oh no, they roast the chicken, right? And they ate the snake eggs. And then like there was a mushroom, and they ate the mushroom. So like they are food and animal based, or I should say plant and animal based creatures that they are eating. Yeah, right. So yeah, they look edible. They just ate some mollusks, and I won't give the context for how they found out they were mollusks, but they just had like, you know, open shell mollusk meals. Like so it's very interesting the way that they're turning all of these different monsters into recognizable foods. And recognizable foods that you'll never eat, because I'm not going to find weird chickens with snakes for tails out in the world. But it's fun. I'm enjoying it. I think recently I've been in kind of like a D&D headspace because I went to a D&D live show that was a lot of fun. And then I've been playing Baldur's Gate with some friends, which we're using like D&D. So for somebody who actually has only played D&D like 2 or 3 times in her life, I'm kind of surrounded by the tropes and trappings in the world of Dungeons and Dragons right now. So this is kind of like playing into that from my anime watching space. So Dungeon Meshi is on Netflix for anyone that's interested. Oh, and I guess importantly, it's based on a manga that was written and illustrated by Ryoko Kui, which I haven't read, but I've seen her art online before and it looks gorgeous. Oh, and it just reminded me of something else that's sparking a lot of joy for me, but I picked Dungeon Meshi, so I won't go on for too long about anything else. I mean, you gave me a curious look, so if I could steal a little bit more time, just one other super quick thing. I started reading this super cute girls' love story called The Guy That She Was Interested In Isn't Actually a Guy at All. And I've been really enjoying it. Like I read a couple pages before bed to like help me go to sleep at night. I'll throw it in the show notes as well, it's also delightful. It just made me, when I was thinking about art and delightful art, it came to mind for me. So those are 1.5 things that are sparking joy for me right now.
Ayani would like to eat some monsters is what I'm getting from
that. I'm just enjoying the creative ways that they are eating monsters. I feel like I actually, you know what? I don't know.
You went on it like at some length about the many different dishes that they have made.
You know what? If I'm being honest, if someone was like, here, I roasted this giant chicken monster that's just like a big chicken, I probably would eat it. You know? Like teriyaki chicken monster. I don't think I would say no. I'd have to question where they got a chicken monster from, but like, you know. I don't know. If there was a monster tteokbokki dish, do you think you'd turn it down?
I'm pretty close to vegetarian, so maybe.
That's true.
The mushroom monster might be okay. But...
What about if it was a kimchi, but the fish sauce was like a monster fish? Because you really like kimchi.
Maybe.
See? There are ways. There are openings here.
Okay.
But enough about this. What's sparking joy for you, Corinne?
So what's sparking joy for me is the Korean drama Lovely Runner. This one kind of took me by surprise. As we record, I'm 10 episodes into the show. I'm watching it live as it airs. But it's very fun. It is a rom-com. The setup, which I'm about to describe, does not sound like a rom-com. But it's about this 33-ish-year-old young woman who is a fan of a Korean idol, and he dies. It is suspected by suicide, and she manages to go back in time with the goal of saving him, because she goes back in time 15 years to her own body as a high schooler because it turns out that they were neighbors. And it follows their relationship as she is trying very desperately to save him and then also prevent her own accident that paralyzed her. And again, that does not sound like a rom-com.
It does not.
But what makes it so lovely to watch are, I think, the two main actors and their really, really great chemistry. So Kim Hye-yoon plays Im-sol. She also played the female lead in another of my favorite dramas, Extraordinary You. And Byun Woo-suk plays Ryu Sun-jae, the Korean idol. And they are just so funny. And in particular, Kim Hye-yoon is just so over the top, goofy, like a bulldozer of a character who, like, when she starts like time slipping back in time, she is the least subtle person about being back in time, but she's just so extra that everyone's like, yeah, okay, well, Im-sol is just very weird anyway, so that's fine.
It's just how she is.
But it's super, super charming. It kind of came out of nowhere. Honestly, the premise of it didn't appeal to me when I read about it, and apparently it barely got made because like the script has been ready for 3 years, but they were having trouble casting it.
Whoa,
because
really?
Well, because nobody wanted to play a Korean idol who appeared to have died by suicide, and then also to have the situation in which he has a romance with a fan.
Oh, I see.
When that's all you know about it, that does sound a little bit like
sketch.
Yeah. But the script is actually, I think, very sensitively written in handling that relationship, at least as far as I am in the drama. It does have your sort of run-of-the-mill K-drama serial killer that, you know...
No!
that, you know, just shows up sometimes in rom-coms.
Oh, God, man. So for context with my reaction, I just started Lovely Runner. I've seen one episode and I think it's delightful. And I love the main actress. I've missed her since, I was going to say Extraordinary Attorney Woo. That's not what it was. I've missed her since Extraordinary You. But the random rom-com serial killer is one of my least favorite K-drama tropes of all. Like, there was a drama that we literally stopped because I just could not with the serial killer. And I mean, and also the homophobia, but like the serial killer, I was like, this is ridiculous. And the fact that the two of those were tied together, I was like, yeah. So, I mean, thanks for the spoiler in a sense that now I know it's coming and I won't be so mad that I just turn off the show.
Well, it's not the kind of serial killer that, like, I felt betrayed because they made a character that I liked. The serial killer, it was more...
Oh, so it's not Im-sol is what you're saying.
Oh, no. Im-sol is not a serial killer. I hope that's not, like, a crazy spoiler.
Total genre shift right there. Go on.
No, but it's so fun, and honestly, their chemistry is just so good, and they're both giant losers when they like somebody.
Ooh, relatable.
It's if they weren't like, they deserve each other, honestly. But anyway, there's like a couple of different time slips that happen where she like goes back in time and then doesn't, and then goes back to the present and like doesn't succeed, and like there's also some really, really clever time travel jokes, none of which I will spoil. But I was talking to my brother. I was talking to my brother about this drama, and my brother's not a K-drama person at all, and he laughed at my recounting of the time travel genre jokes that they have. So the humor is top notch.
Maybe you'll convert yet another member of your family to watching K-dramas.
I doubt it. I don't think my brother is a persuadable audience here. But Lovely Runner is sparking a lot of joy. Very much looking forward to it from week to week, and very much hoping that it keeps it up and doesn't have that sort of third or fourth act slog.
So wait, Corinne, where can people watch Lovely Runner?
Oh, so I'm watching Lovely Runner on Viki.
Is that the only place So I'm assuming so. It came up.
That's the only place in the States to watch it, but I know there's
Okay.
sometimes a difference between where things are available here and in, like, the United Kingdom.
Ah, got it. Okay. Yeah, because Vicky is where I'm watching it too, messing up your order, so it'll take you back to like episode 2 and 3 when you return.
I've actually been messing up. I'm sorry, I need to stop talking about Lovely Runner. But, like, this is the rare drama where I've gone back and rewatched scenes and almost full episodes while waiting for the next episodes to air because I've enjoyed them so much.
Oh, I've never done that.
I don't know that I've ever done that either. It's but it, like, has a lot of sort of reveals and rewards rewatching a little bit because of the timey-wiminess of it.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay. Well, this has been a fruitful round of What's Sparking Joy, in which we talked about a lot of things that have made us happy. This was a good one, especially because neither of these shows that we talked about have made us, like, devolve into blubbering messes yet. So, you know, sometimes when we talk about Sparking Joy, the shows we talk about actually spark, like, emotions and tears. So, speaking of tears, we can transition to talking about Queen of Tears. As always, we'll give a little bit of like a summary and we'll talk about some of the principal characters. But just to rehash, we're going to be thinking largely about like the show in the context of the conversation we've been having around divorce comedies. So we're not going to talk about everything. And I'm sure some of you have very deep feelings about Queen of Tears, seeing as it is apparently done incredibly well, ratings wise, and kind of like critique wise, the internet seems to like Queen of Tears. I think there was a moment where I was Googling it and Google was like, it's the number 2 most searched rom-com right now. And I was like, wow, cool. Okay.
A, number 2 most searched. B, rom-com?
It says rom-com on Wikipedia too. I mean, we can talk about that, but but before we dive into that, why don't we do a quick overview of the Queen of Tears plot and some of the characters we'll be thinking about today.
All right, so stealing this summary from Wikipedia, the series depicts the dizzying crisis and miraculous rekindling of love between Hong Hae-in, a third-generation chaebol heiress of Queen's Group, and Baekhyun-woo, the son of farmers from Yeongduri, and their 3 years of marriage. It was written by Park Ji-eun and directed by Kim Hee-won. It was actually co-directed by Kim Hee-won and Jang Young-woo, but a lot of people were looking forward to this drama in particular because it was the reunion of the writer and director pair of Crash Landing on You, which is many, many people's favorite drama and or gateway Korean drama.
Yep, it was my gateway drama, right?
Oh,
I think so.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
It was my second Korean drama, but it was the one that really hooked me.
Your first one, what was that? Cinderella and the Four Knights?
Yes.
It's funny that I remembered that faster than you.
Well, I was going to say the first Chinese drama that I watched, which was the second Asian drama that I watched, which was like a goofy high school drama called Accidentally in Love. Very cute, unexceptional, but I enjoyed it, and it was good enough to get me to watch Crash Landing on You next. So... yeah, so Queen of Tears, your sort of basic chaebol. Well, the setup is your sort of basic chaebol melodrama, except that we're looking at a relationship that already exists at the start of the drama, and we're kind of looking at how it has fallen apart and then comes back together.
Yeah, and I'll put this here. We're obviously going to be doing spoilers for Queen of Tears. I feel a little compelled to say that because it's so new. And because people might just be picking it up, right? Still. So know that if you continue beyond this point in the recording, we'll be giving a lot of spoilers for Queen of Tears as part of our discussion. And the reason I say that is that one of the things that complicates this is like just a chaebol drama is the fact that the female lead has a cancer, a debilitating cancer, and has a... what is it called when you have a bad prognosis? Is it just a bad prognosis?
Terminal.
Terminal. There we go. She has a terminal prognosis with about 3 months to live or so at the start of the drama. So it kind of lets you know that there's already going to be those emotional stakes that come to bear as you move through the story. So let's do a really quick run through of some of the important characters that we'll be talking about today. So, first of all, we have the very delightful and very handsome Kim Soo-hyun, who plays Baek Hyun-woo, who is the husband of Hong Hae-in, who we mentioned earlier in the introduction. Next, we have Kim Ji-won, who plays Hong Hae-in. And then last but not least, we have Park Sung-hoon, who plays Yoon Un-sung, who is a former friend, classmate of Hae-in.
And boyfriend.
And a boyfriend, yeah. You know, it's
Yeah.
funny. Oh, well, go ahead.
Well, yeah, they dated in college, and then so he kind of is set up as the second male lead and also the villain. It's one of those.
It's funny because they said that they dated, but the way that they talked about it, I was always a little skeptical what they meant by date. I was like, was he really your boyfriend, or did you all go like have pizza and study once, and he took that farther than it actually was? But yeah, he's kind of a jerk. Actually, he's not a nice guy in this show. Which is funny because Kryn brought this up multiple times when we were talking about the show, but the last drama we saw him in was Into the Ring, and he was a completely different character.
Oh yeah, he plays like this dorky local government official in Into the Ring who's the romantic male lead, but also like a nerd. So to see him playing this villain was very like disconcerting to me.
And a monstrous villain at that. He's not just like the annoying guy at the office. Like, he's not a good dude.
Mm-hmm.
If we talk about other characters, we'll kind of introduce their actors at that point in time. But like, this is a huge cast. And if we tried to introduce everybody, we would just be sitting here doing character introductions for the next like half an hour.
Kind of like we were when we did our Crash Landing on You episode in the early days of the podcast.
Oh God. I haven't even like gone and listened to like that character opening introduction in years. So yeah, okay.
All right. Well, to, I guess, then get into our discussion proper. And again, reminder, spoilers from here on out. Is this a divorce comedy? Because we are ostensibly including it as a bonus episode in our divorce comedy series. But is it a divorce comedy, Ayani?
You know, I'm going to say no.
Mm-hmm.
I thought in the beginning we might head in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
But the show makes a pretty steep turn towards melodrama and chaebol antics, and like, while
I wouldn't even call it antics because that sounds more fun. It's more like chaebol dramatics.
There's some antics, but it's antics and dramatics. I think that's fair. When a certain old man pushes himself down the stairs, it definitely makes a turn towards dramatics. You know, so it's not a comedy anymore. Like, I think the first couple of episodes really are, a lot of stuff is played for laughs, but maybe around like episode 6, right? It makes a pretty dramatic shift into the melodrama side of things. And while certain characters are consistently played for laughs, and of course that means they're my favorite characters, right? The show's just not a comedy at that point anymore.
I think it becomes it becomes pretty solidly a makjang. So for those of you unfamiliar with Korean dramas, makjang is a genre which is kind of like we would think of as like a telenovela or soap opera. In which things are taken to their like absurd extreme within the plot, but in a difference from like American soap operas, are played very like seriously by the characters. Some other makjangs that we've mentioned on the show are Little Women. Vincenzo? Is Vincenzo makjang?
You know, I think more of Vincenzo as a gangster drama, law drama, comma show.
But another makjang would be Mine.
Also, fun of you to mention Vincenzo, since
that
he has a little bit of a cameo in Queen of Tears. So then why are we talking about it here in kind of the context of our divorce comedy miniseries, right? If both of us are kind of like, it has funny moments, but it's not a comedy, you know, how does it fit in this conversation for you?
So I think it fits into the conversation because particularly in the early episodes, where the show feels more like a comedy, particularly in the way that Kim Soo-hyun is playing Baek Hyun-woo. A lot of the comedic aspects come from the sort of insight we slowly get into Baek Hyun-woo's relationship with Hong Hae-in, which when we are introduced to them is on the rocks.
Yeah.
Like they're sleeping in separate bedrooms, they fight at work, particularly the office antics of the way that like their secretaries deal with each other are very funny, and the way that like Baek Hyun-woo can't get any of his friends to be his divorce attorney because they're afraid of the Queen's group family. A lot of stuff at the beginning resonates with what we are recognizing in the divorce comedy genre, even though there is this later turn towards the melodramatic.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to kind of think about one of our key questions when we talk about divorce comedies is the question of, do we want them to get divorced at the beginning? And I know for me, when the show started, I was like, oh, these people absolutely need to be divorced. They are making each other miserable. Not to mention that Hae-in is Hyun-woo's boss. So he works for her as their head of the
legal department.
The legal department. I was going to say the law group, but that's not quite right. But yeah, so he's head of the legal department, but he works for Hae-in. So she can make his life as miserable as she wants to as his boss. And sometimes it's just kind of all around a miserable person in general. So the dynamic between them was bad. Hyun-woo had divorce papers written up that he was going to give her, right? And it felt like they just were nasty to each other. So for me, at the start, I felt like they should just be divorced.
Well, and another aspect of that about why they needed to be divorced was because Hong Hae-in's family was so terrible to Hyun-woo. Like,
oh yeah, they're the worst.
it was very much like, oh, this Chaebol family is garbage. Like the grandfather, who's like the head of Queen's group, like regularly like ruins people who like leave his business, and like there's this that like Hyun-woo goes into trying to divorce Hae-in with the knowledge that like it will probably ruin the rest of his life. He just wants to get out with like relatively intact. And there's like they also made Hae-in write a will that wouldn't leave Hyun-woo anything if she were to die. Like he's very much like giving his life to the service of keeping Queen's group together when all of these people are garbage. And
every last one of them, all of them,
and they like treat him really badly. Like he can't even like go get a drink and like complain to his friend without being followed to make sure he doesn't make a scene in public, which by the way had a delightful cameo from two of my favorites from Crash Landing on You doing the following. But
yeah, no, that was and see that's kind of the comedy aspect of it, right? Is that we have these moments where one, we're getting excited about actors that we recognize, but then also it's all played for laughs. He's like sobbing, having had 2 beers from a convenience store and talking to his friend, and is like, no, look, they follow me. And he like stands up and they jump up and he sits down. So there's this, it's just played for laughs. It's like bodily physical comedy. And that was that like episode 1, episode 2?
I think that was episode 1, like from the get-go.
Yeah. And then the conceit of like the first half, and I know this is kind of cycling back, but the conceit of the first half is that he finds out that Hyun-woo finds out that Hae-in is going to die, and he makes the decision that he's just going to be as nice to her as possible rather than get divorced, because that's easier than going through the process, which sounds terrible. Honestly, it kind of makes him sound a little bit like an asshole. But if you're thinking about it as a comedy, right? Rather than the melodrama stakes that come in later, like I thought it was really funny.
Well, especially so thinking about whose side the drama sets us up to be on at the beginning, it sets us up to be on Hyun-woo's side, because we don't really get any of Hae-in's interiority at the beginning.
This is true. Yeah.
We really only see the ways that she's terrible to Hyun-woo, and don't see the ways maybe that he is also sometimes not the best husband. So like I thinking about it when we start, Hae-in almost seems like and this is a little bit of an exaggeration, but like the shit husband in Dr. Cha.
Oh, well, she didn't have a whole other
She did not have a whole other family, but in the way that she seemed to take Hyunwoo for granted.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. And to be fair, shitty to most of the other people around her as well. From the vantage point we're given. Yeah.
She's very much like the tsundere ice queen character.
I wouldn't say she's a tsundere because we don't get any of the loving part. She's just an ice queen.
We get the loving part later.
Right, but not at this point.
Not at the beginning,
right now.
yeah.
Yeah. But no, I think you're absolutely right. The point of not getting her interiority at the beginning is huge. Though I will say, we do start getting kind of early on the setup of her against her family as that starts to shift. Like, I'm thinking of the scene where she finds out what's happening to her and she runs into her mother in the hallway, and her mother is all up in arms about her younger brother, Socho, who we'll come back to because I love him. And Heian is like, I just got some news that was bad. Do you want to hear it? And her mother kind of completely blows her off. So we do kind of start to see Heian as like part of this bigger conglomerate, but also, I don't know, in her own kind of separate island from their nastiness, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, it's like the being part of a Chaebol family is bad for all of them. Like, it's bad for Heian, it's bad for Suchol because of her brother, because of the way that like her parents treat him. It's not really great for her dad, who is like, who is, I think, the second son of the grandfather, who is like the chief, because the eldest son has been fully kicked out of the family,
exiled.
Heian's aunt has been in jail for physically assaulting the chairman's mistress, like, and I'm just
her so much.
Yeah, the crazy aunt is one of our favorite characters.
She's the best.
But like, this whole family is a whole mess. Like, and part of the reason they are a mess is because they treat each other with such suspicion all of the time because of the money. Because they want it.
And then they also treat kind of the people who marry into the family with like an extra level of suspicion. Because I mean, think about that sequence with all of the husbands.
Oh yeah, I totally forgot. They like had this whole comedic scene at the beginning with like all of the son-in-laws preparing the food for one of the like memorials.
Yep, it was the grandmother's memorial.
Yeah, and it's just like these 20 men in suits preparing like the food for it. And well, because there's this like recurring trope in K-dramas of daughter-in-laws being forced to do a lot of like domestic labor. So they set it up as like turning that on its head. But like, we never see any of them again. I totally forgot that happened.
Ever. And they're all in camaraderie about how terrible the situation is, and like, you know, they can't leave because if they leave, then, and they weren't even like main house family members. Like, it was like cousins.
They're like cousins,
yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. I forgot that even happened.
Well, I'm glad I could remind you. But yeah, the Hong family is not a really good bunch. But looping back to divorce, because we kind of spiraled out. I knew this would happen. I knew it would happen. But looping back around to divorce, when did it change for you? Or I'm making an assumption. Did your feelings about the fact that they should get divorced change? And if yes, then when?
So I flip-flopped a couple of times.
Ooh, spicy. Tell me more.
Well, because I think, although we are positioned to be on Hyunwoo's side, that it was pretty shitty of him to be like, yes, I shall pretend that I love my wife now that I know she is terminally ill, so that...
That's so fucked up. You're right, especially when you say it
until
like that.
she dies. Like, that's fucked up, man.
So you're telling me that's not what you would have done? No?
Look, I don't know. He was in a rough spot. But also, like, Heian deserved better. Like, she deserved the truth.
Yes, I do think she deserved the truth, though I will say she did not make it easy for people to give her the truth.
That's also true.
You know, if he was going to get divorced at the, you know, the threat of the rest of his life being ruined, and was like, you know what? I can just not be mean to her for 3 months. It seemed like the path of least resistance, even though it is definitely an asshole move to make. They should have just gone to counseling, but like, you know, that's just my opinion. So you're saying that you flip flop though, because right now it sounds like you're just on the side that they're bad for each other and shouldn't be together.
So I think the drama set us up to believe, and I think I did believe this, because I watched this drama kind of as it aired, but then I got behind, so I had to like binge the end.
So I'm just gonna say this, I'm gonna interrupt you, because those episodes were so goddamn long. Why were they an hour and a half? Why?
Yeah, perhaps one of our critiques of this drama is that it could have benefited from some tightening up of the script.
That much more nicely than I did. But please continue.
But we're set up to believe that Hyunwoo does sort of remember his love for Hae-in. Like, he acts himself into believing it, sort of. At least enough to stay with her through when she hopefully gets better. That's one of the very Makjang things. It's like, oh, there's a miracle cure. Oh, never mind, it won't work for her. Oh, maybe there's this other miracle cure, but like it's gonna give her amnesia. Like that back and forth is a whole lot. But they do enough to make me believe that Hyunwoo, particularly when he sees Hae-in start to like actually really, really suffer from this brain cancer that she has, to be like, oh, like actually I don't like seeing you suffer. I may be okay leaving you when I know you're fine, but when I know you're not okay and there's no one to take care of you, like I'm not cool with that.
Right. I'm going to take care of you. So at that moment, did you start rooting for them to be together?
I think maybe the moment where I realized I really wanted them to be together was actually when Hae-in found out about the divorce papers, and it seemed like, oh, they're actually getting divorced, and I was like, oh, I don't want them to do that, actually.
You know what's funny? It was around the same time for me. So there's a sequence when Hae-in has, I forgot it. Oh, because she went to Germany for this miracle treatment the first time by herself. And she's on the stairs of this, what was it? Some king's fancy summer home, right? In Germany. I'm forgetting the exact kind of story around it. But she's there and she's like, her shoes are hurting her because she decided to walk up all these steps in heels. And then Hyunwoo appears to like be there for her. And I think at that moment I was like, oh, I hope they can get past this, because they need each other in ways they haven't realized they needed each other. So that episode for me was really kind of building up my desire to see them stay together, only for them to like throw it all in my face at the end of that episode.
Actually, I wonder if part of that, and part of the reason that we both felt that way around the same time, is because when Hyunwoo finds out that Hae-in went to Germany by herself, he sort of drops everything to go be with her instead of going on like this boys trip with his buddy. Yeah. I really liked his buddy, by the way.
Oh, he was great. Yes, I adored him.
Just as a side, he's also like a buddy character in The Interest of Love, which is another K-drama that I super, super enjoyed. But part of why I think maybe that sequence worked for both of us to convince us that their relationship could be saved and maybe should be saved is because it showed them together outside of the immediate influence of the family.
Yeah. Honestly, something that I was thinking about this entire show is how they were going to remove the pressure of the Queen's group, because that, in large, it felt like drove a lot of wedges in between them. And, you know, not that they did not have their own part in it, right? You know, they were not very good communicators, for instance. But the pressures and requirements of being a part of this family, I think, drove a lot of wedges between them. So, like, constantly throughout the show, I was like, okay, are they going to get away from the Queen's group? Are they going to get away from the Queen's group? How is that going to happen? Will they be able to stay together? So I think you're right. The fact that this was them away from those familial pressures. But also, I think the writer-director team did a good job of kind of dropping hints that Hyunwoo was shifting from, like, pretending, right? To actually having some of these feelings welled up again. the epilogues helped
Mm-hmm.
sometimes to kind of put some of those things in perspective, even though sometimes they were a little too, I don't know. There were some moments that I was kind of like, really? This is what we're doing with the romance? Okay.
Okay, so I will say, I think this writer needs to really pull back on the fated mates. We have met each other 5 times since childhood trope. So I've seen her dramas, My Love from Another Star, Legend of the Deep Blue Sea, and Crash Landing on You, and in all of them, it's either like we knew each other in a previous life, or we've somehow met each other 15 times without realizing it, which is how we know that the universe wants us to be together, and I am so tired of it.
So I will say in Chloe, and remind me if I'm forgetting, but the one time they came together was in Switzerland when Yoon Se-ri was like, it's too much, life is too much, and Captain Ri was like, hey, take my picture with my friend, and she was like, do you not see I'm about to do something here with this bridge?
And he's like, yeah, but we'll just take a picture not on the bridge so we can get you off of it.
Right. But that was the one time that they connected, right? Or was there another one that I'm forgetting?
I think that's the main one.
Okay.
I was more okay with that, but
yeah. So for me, that's a one-time kind of a thing, right? But in this show, how many fucking touch points do you need? I'm sorry, I'm being a little extra, but like, so this, I feel weird calling them the triangle, second male lead, because Unsung never had a chance. Like, it was always clear to me that he was never going to make he had no chance whatsoever, and I wasn't rooting for him to have a chance, so I don't even want to call him the second male lead, right? Because he was a jerk and he killed dogs. Like, I don't know. But the three of them had like 15 million touch points over the course of their childhoods. Like, there's the we're like 10, 11 childhood touch point, and then Hyungwoo and Haein overlapped for 5 hours at school in high school, and then like was there another one before they met at work?
There were so many. She like I'm unclear whether it's like when they met at work, after they had met at work, or before, where she like would follow him in her chauffeured car when he was on the bus. Like,
oh, that was during work. That was the sense that I got.
Okay. It was so much.
It was a lot.
Okay.
I didn't need that.
But digression, what I think you were maybe going to say before we got annoyed at that.
I totally lost it. I don't know what I was going to say.
That one of the things that did work in the flashbacks was understanding why these two people fell in love in the first place. Yes. Which I think is necessary in a divorce comedy, both to understand why they got together. If they want to convince us that they should stay together, then we need to be sold on why they got together in the first place. Yeah. And for me, actually, another one of the sequences that I think really worked for me in filling in some of that backstory about why they really fell apart was the knowledge we got about the miscarriage that Haein had.
Oh, yeah. That broke my heart. And what that brought into such pristine focus for me were the fact that they were not communicating with each other. And if you can't, like, during something like that, if you can't talk to your spouse about it, right, and you're not going to a therapist because they clearly weren't talking to anybody outside of each other.
There was that actually sequence where we do see Hyunwoo with a therapist.
You're right.
In the first episode, which was
who was his brother in It's Okay to Not Be Okay.
Full of cameos, this drama.
Yeah, you're right. So Hyunwoo was going to a therapist. Haein was not, I'm going to assume. But it was the fact that they didn't really share their emotions with each other in that moment, and it turned into a fight.
Well,
right?
It was kind of like they were both so excited about having a baby when Haein found out she was pregnant, which is, I think, maybe one of the first moments I remember of seeing, like, oh, Hyunwoo, like, he really loved her. Like, he's so excited about having a kid. And then after she miscarried, they are clearly both in pain, but have internalized it. So, particularly Haein internalized it instead of talking to Hyunwoo about it.
Yeah.
Which is when he that's when he moves out of sleeping in the same room as her. And and that's sort of, I think, when they were both suffering, but both thought the other one either wasn't suffering or like blamed them, and that's kind of when their communication broke down.
But I guess the thing for me, so I don't disagree, but I think it's more than just internalizing it. It was the outward actions that really started to drive the wedge between them. Because Haein, and I'm not saying this is all Haein's fault. Haein, when Hyunwoo comes over and is like, do you want to talk about it? She's like, what is there to talk about? And then pretends to be on a phone call. But then she goes behind a truck and like breaks down and cries and has them empty out the baby's room without talking to Hyunwoo about it, because she's in such pain, because she's grieving. So for me, the conversation or the communication had already broken down at that point, because she's like, I'm in so much pain, I can't even look at the furniture. But she didn't even mention that to him before clearing it out to see where his head was at, right?
Yeah.
You know, so it's not just that it happened and that broke the communication, but that showed the fault line or the rift that was already existing between them.
Mm-hmm.
But even on that note, the thing, if we're talking about the things that kind of showed that they really loved each other, the reason that the story about the miscarriage even comes up is that Haein's phone passcode would have been the due date for their child.
Yeah. So
that's the first time I think that Hyunwoo is really reminded of the fact that Haein actually did have feelings for him, and that they were, you know, that she's not so cold that she has forgotten all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
And that was also after a really funny scene where she was like, who do you think you are, Timothy Chalamet? After you're trying to be cute, and she like sends him away. It was so bizarre. I don't know why they translate, of all people, Timothy Chalamet in like the translation. But okay. So since we've been talking a little bit about them rekindling their love for each other, and also how that all comes crashing down in episode 6, I think it was, because I think that's where I stopped for a while, because I was like, these episodes are long, but also heartbreak is imminent. Do they, and obviously, spoiler again, but are we happy with where they ended up at the end of the show after this journey? Is it where we wanted to see them at this point? You know, we did it. We watched the whole thing, so it's worth talking about the end.
So I think, this would have been a totally different show if this happened. So obviously I was convinced that they should be together by the end, and that they and particularly like the divorce didn't really take.
No, it did not. It did happen though.
It did happen.
Which is part of the reason why we are talking about it, is that they did actually sign divorce papers. There was a divorce.
Yeah, they signed divorce papers. It happened. And then the Queen's group fell, and it was a whole thing. And then Hyunwoo was the only one who had their back. But I think, I really liked the sequence where, like, the, you know, rich family goes to Yeongduri and, like, it's, like, slumming it. But with, like, the people who are, like, the rich people of the town.
Right. So they're not slumming it that hard. Like,
yeah. So I liked that sequence. But I almost think... Oh, this is a spicy take.
I'm ready.
I think I think the drama would have landed better for me if she had died.
Oh, that is a spicy take. Why do you want to kill Haein? Like, what?
I don't. But also,
you do.
I think they, like, handled really well at the beginning her dealing with mortality and her impending mortality, really sort of making them both take stock of what they cared about. So having this miraculous cure at the end kind of, like, pulled away some of those stakes for me.
So I'm going to add on to your spicy take with a spicy take, actually.
Okay.
I knew she wasn't going to die, right? It wasn't going to be that kind of a show. Especially since Grandpa already kicked the bucket. Yeah,
right? Once he died, Haein wasn't going to die.
Right.
At least she didn't get her memories back. That really would have been too much once they set up the amnesia stakes.
I mean, she got some of them back. They would trickle back in little by little. But I think I would have felt better about the ending if they didn't rush to put the two leads back together again. I think kind of ending the show with this scene of the two of them holding hands of a child between them, and like they got back together and they have the family that they always wanted and everyone's happy at the end. It kind of almost tied too neat of a bow on the situation, because what the amnesia does is it erases all the hard times, right? And one of the things, not to get on my married soapbox, right? But one of the things about being married is that, like, you know, I'm sure there are some things I forget because your brain forgets things, but like part of being married is figuring out how to get past the points where you hurt each other, right? And wiping Haynes' memory is a very convenient way of getting rid of all of the past pain and starting fresh. And so having them, it almost like feels cheapened to me to have them together at the end, right? With, I mean, obviously there were struggles to get them to that point because, you know, Unsung was like, if I can't have you, nobody will. I got this rifle. So like, you know, there were problems, but it's almost too neat of a bow, right?
Yeah.
Honestly, I might have preferred for all of this stuff to be happening, for her to think that she's going to lose her memories, but her memories actually aren't lost, right? And they have to kind of, like, yes, everyone would be happy in that moment, but like now she has to carry the weight of all of these things that happened to her with this sickness and with this illness, right? Because we also skip over her healing. She like goes through this massive brain surgery and then is like fine.
Also, the whole time, this is a minor gripe, but the whole time I was like, you're gonna portray this character with terminal brain cancer and she ain't never lose no hair.
No
like
hair.
I know that's a chemotherapy thing, but also like she looks perfectly well the whole time.
I was gonna say her makeup is flawless the entire time she's having massive brain surgery. You know? And so it's kind of like I would have been more interested and invested, but already at this point we're already like 14 episodes deep, right? So that's not what the show is about. But you know, what does it mean to come back together again after she's had all these massive hills and valleys? She's not ill anymore, but now she has to go through the series of recovery. Does she want the same things that she's wanted, right? Because one of her big goals was to like reach the $1 billion club or something,
the trillion club.
And does she want that anymore? Like, is she at this point the woman that Hyunwoo fell in love with? Like, there's so many more meaty questions for me if she doesn't lose her memory.
Yeah, then effectively doing like a reset.
Right, exactly. You know, not that it didn't make me cry, because I definitely hugged Andrew. It was like, if I have brain cancer and I forget all my memories, I still love you. Right, like obviously it still plucked at those chords for me. And weren't we texting like, what would you do if you had a massive brain cloud cancer kind of a thing? So it's not that it didn't have an impact, but kind of, I don't know. It's almost like, okay, third spicy take on top of the other two. It felt like the kind of drama that we were given was drama for drama's sake, not the drama of being a human and being alive. Right?
Yeah, I think
does that make sense?
The things that were more interesting to me were Hyunwoo and Haeun's relationship when it was difficult and they were both sort of like one foot in, particularly when Hyunwoo was 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and figuring out why he still had 1 foot in. And then also like, what do you do when a loved one who maybe you don't love as much anymore, but maybe you do, like, is unwell? Like, I think those were more interesting questions to me than, like, where is the chairman slush fund?
Right, exactly. Or, like, you know, what is going on with his mistress who may or may not have had a baby in jail. Like, I don't know.
And may or may not be a serial killer. Like,
yeah, so all of that, I think what I really wanted was the human drama of it. More than some of the like makjan drama of it, if that makes sense. So at the end, I would have been more interested in that human, the weight of being human, rather than, oh no, Hyunwoo is going to jail, because I know he's not going to stay in jail. Like I know what's going to happen with those things, because I've watched TV before.
Really what we're saying is we would have liked the show better if it was the divorce comedy.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And that's why we're talking about it in this series.
Yes. We want more divorce comedies, actually, is the argument we're making.
You know what? 100%. And like, I want more divorce comedies that really deal with the nature of what it means to like love somebody and then feel like you can't be with them anymore, regardless of whether people end up together at the end or not. Right?
Mm-hmm. Actually, that's maybe a good transition for a couple of other things that we did actually really like about the drama.
Let's do it.
So like another, they're not the main couple by any means, but another couple that kind of has some juicy, like, should they be together? But maybe they shouldn't. Are Suchol, Haen's little brother, and his Kong woman wife, Dahi.
I loved them so much, though. But you're absolutely right. So yeah, they're not like a B couple, but they kind of are. And Dahi is so funny.
Okay, so for some context, Suchol
go ahead.
Suchol is Haen's fuck-up younger brother. He's played to perfection by Kwak Dong-yeon. And who actually, if you like him, I highly, highly recommend the rom-com Gaus Electronics. He plays the male lead in that drama.
It's next on my list because I love him so much.
But he's so... He originally just seems kind of like an asshole, and he's clearly like the favored child by the mother, but like... But it turns out that his wife is playing the role of like this perfect woman to marry into this rich family who like doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, is a devoted mother. It supports her husband. It's actually a con woman who, for reasons, as part of the plot to overthrow the family, has pretended to be someone that she's not in order to marry Suchol. And then she like bounces at one point
with a lot of money and the baby,
who is not Suchol's baby, it turns out.
She drops that on him too, and she's like, and by the way, he's not yours.
Like, she just like leaves this letter that is like, by the way, I'm leaving, I'm gone, goodbye. Also, I'm 5 years older than you, and I know you said you were allergic to older women, but clearly that's not the case. And also, this isn't your son. Never speak to me again. Bye.
But also it was supposed to be like her letter, because she was clearly having feelings about leaving this dumb man. So this was like her love letter goodbye to him, where she was just really mean. Like,
anyway, from what we have said, it seems like these two should not be together. And yet,
I rooted for them so hard, actually. So after Dahi absconds with money and the baby to New York, no less, I imagine her, I don't know, maybe she's on the Upper East Side.
I think that I remember them saying, I think she had like an Upper West Side apartment.
Oh, it's Upper West Side. Fancy.
And a golden Buddha statue that she stole.
I mean, she's got taste. If you're gonna steal something, you know. Suchol is distraught. All he does for days is cry about the fact that she and the baby are gone. And there are some moments, I will say, before she absconds, in which you get some insights into why he's doing things. And part of it is because he wants to be a good father for his son. So, like, for example, he's learning how to ride a bike, even though his mother doesn't want him to fall and hurt himself.
It's this scene that is played for laughs, in which he is like wearing a helmet, riding a bike with trainer wheels on it, and is being coached by like an Olympian cyclist. And his mom comes over and is like, get off that right now, you're gonna fall, you're gonna hurt yourself. And then like we find out that the reason he wanted to learn how to ride a bike was so that he could teach his son, because his mom never let him do any of that stuff growing up.
And see, that made me cry, actually. I might have shed a couple tears about that. But what's fun is the bike also comes back up multiple times. He gets a lot better at riding the bike. But after Dahi absconds, he's distraught, and he wants to find any way to communicate with her, even though she's completely like, she threw her cell phone away, she has a brand new address, she's taken on an assumed name. Like, he finds her through like the stupid like MMO game that they would play together on a cell phone game, right? And he doesn't message her asking her to come back, or, you know, why did you leave me, angry. He messages her, don't forget to get our son this particular medicine and to sing this song to him when it's time for shots.
Yeah, just like, here's his vaccine record. Like,
right.
This is where he is.
The vaccine records in English and Korean.
And he's been, like, camped out in, like, the one building with good Wi-Fi in this small town that they're basically exiled in, watching this game to see if she gets on, in case.
And, like, can I tell you? I got so emotional about that. So, ultimately, Dahi ended up coming back, which I think you said some fans had problems with.
Okay, so it ended up working for me by the end, but...
I told you.
Okay, but I do think it didn't work for me at first to be like, yes, and this con woman who cheated on him, we should be rooting for that relationship, actually.
You know, I was more rooting for the fact that he was standing up for himself against his family. And had something, because he was so allowing himself to be pushed in so many different directions by different people, that the fact that he was like, I'm going to protect my woman and you're not going to talk about my child this way, that's more what I was rallying behind.
Well, and I actually really liked that he insisted that their son was still his son, because like he'd been there like since the moment of his birth, and like cut the umbilical cord, and like was just like such a dad that I was like, okay, well, like this man, whatever weird toxic chaebol stuff he has, it does not have toxic masculinity problems.
And also that he's, I don't know, I don't want to call him a boyfriend, but like the man that she was with beforehand, let's say, it was kind of an abusive, nasty man. So when he finds her in New York, she starts to remember how much she really likes Suchol.
Who is like kind of a doofus, but who absolutely dotes on her.
He's definitely a himbo. If he was not in this chaebol family, I feel like he would have lived a much happier life. You know. So honestly, I was rooting for them by the end.
Yeah, I was too.
I wanted them to be happy. And one last couple that we're rooting for. So Haen's crazy auntie, Hong Bomja, right? Who's played by Kim Jung-nan, is hilarious the entire way through. Like, she will cut a bitch and like is ready to fight. She shows up at like an ex-husband's wedding to be like, I told you if I saw you again, I would kick your ass. You know, she's got this thing going on with...
Like, we meet her when Hyunwoo picks her up from jail.
From jail. So, like, she's a force of chaos this entire show, except for she's the only one that is really on to the mistress's bullshit, and hires a private investigator and is doing all this, like, investigating stuff. But what made me really happy for her is when she goes to... you know, the countryside, she meets one of the men in the countryside who's one of Hyunwoo's father's like friends or whatever, and they spark up this little romance that she's like doesn't know if he's flirting with her or not, and she like wants to see him over the wall of his garden. And can I tell you, I was so invested in their romance the entire time.
Well, it was very much a like. It was so funny to have this thrice divorced woman be so into this eternal bachelor character who clearly, like, is kind of into her, but also, like, very baffled by the whole situation.
And I will say he's not an eternal bachelor in the way of, like, he's a player. It's more that...
Oh, yeah, he just, like, hasn't really dated anyone.
Yeah, and he takes care of his mom with dementia and, you know... And I just wanted them to be happy the whole time. The whole time. He, like, makes cookies and, like, has chickens. Like, he's delightful. So the fact that they ended up together brought me a lot of joy. Though Bomja is a little upset that they're moving along at, like, a glacial pace. And in the last episode, she's like, by the time you kiss me, I'll probably be in the grave. Which, of course, leads them to kiss, which is very...
cheek kiss.
It's better than nothing, though.
It's better than nothing, but... Can I say, well, I appreciate the writing skills of Park Ji-eun. Okay, I'm sorry. Hyunwoo and Haein were married, and
and gorgeous.
They did not sleep together enough, particularly when they were like together again. Like there was not enough sexy time. There was not enough makeouts.
No.
Like, come on now.
This was okay. All right, if we're going there, we can go down this road for a quick second. But like this show was so incredibly chaste that like it kind of blew my mind, because there is no way that I'm married to Hyunwoo and I'm just like, here's a little kiss for you, my love, while we're pretending to be newlyweds again. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That man would just not be wearing clothes most of the time. Like, I don't know what to tell you. So yeah, that was one of, with cloud brain cancers and all of this Makjong things happening, that was the most unbelievable part of this show to me.
Yeah,
that,
especially
like,
when they were like rekindling their relationship and were not just like on top of each other all the time is absurd to me.
Especially since there was like this moment where it's like newlyweds need to be touching all the time. And it was like they had one kiss in that sequence and it was a very sweet kiss while cooking. I'm like,
and did like a cute little nap together on the couch, which was very cute, but was insufficient.
It was cute. I don't want cute. That's not what I'm here for.
Spicy.
I want spicy, especially coming off of watching Let's Talk About Chew.
Oh yeah.
There was not enough spice in this show for all of the beautiful people that were in it.
Anyway, that's the 2 cents from a couple of dirty old Ajuma.
This show is called Sex, Love, Literature, and there was not enough sex in this show. I'm just saying. There's plenty of love. There was a bit of literature, right? But absolutely not enough sex. I think that's where we can end this discussion.
Well.
Though, actually, I will say one last thing. Rewinding just a little bit. If the story was about Bumja, I think it would have been a divorce comedy.
Oh yeah, that would have been delightful. I would totally watch a drama about her character. She was amazing.
That's where we can end the discussion. So I hope you all enjoyed this kind of digression during our divorce comedy series. Next up, we have coming Strangers Again, I believe. And then we're going to round out our conversation with Let's Get Divorced. If you want to do your SLL homework, Strangers Again is on Viki and Let's Get Divorced is on Netflix. I think Let's Get Divorced is only like 8 episodes, and then what, Strangers Again is 12 or is it 16? Do you remember?
They do not have Queen of Tears bloat problems.
No, they do not.
They're much tighter stories.
But I'm excited to have conversations about those with you, especially since we've had this kind of like intersectional episode to stick in the middle of the conversation as well. So, Corinne, if folks would like to find us on the internet while they're waiting for next episodes to come out, where should they look?
You can find us on Instagram and Threads at SexLoveLit, and you can find us on Tumblr at SexLoveLit Podcast. And if you happen to not be too familiar with K-dramas and made it through this conversation, in which case, thank you. At the request of a listener, I actually put together a list of K-dramas that I recommend to start with if you're interested in. The way I sort of formatted the listener asked for a list of dramas to try because she had just watched Crash Landing on You and had a Chloe hangover, which totally get it. We've all been there.
Such a mood. Yeah.
But so I put together a list of what I think are some of the best dramas of their genre to try out if you are interested in watching more K-dramas.
And actually, if we're plugging things, I'm going to plug one more quick thing here.
Yeah.
So I am going to be at a romance authors convention in July. I'm going to be tabling for Sex Love Literature at Romanticon, which takes place in Connecticut. If you'd like to come say hi and get some like SLL merch and stuff and see who the face is behind one of the voices that you hear when you're listening to episodes, you should come and find me in Connecticut at that convention. And I'll put some information in the show notes as well as Corinne's list of starter K-dramas. And you can always find the stuff on Instagram too, because I think we posted about both of those there. So thank you for listening to another Sex Love Literature episode. We hope you had a good time. I know we did, actually. I'm surprised by all the
considering how like kind of mid we were about Queen of Tears going in, we apparently had some strong feelings.
So I hope you had as much fun as we did recording this, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Well, hello there, SLL listeners.
What was that?
I don't know.
Are you sure you want to use that?
No.
I don't even know what accent that was.
No. Let's try again. Whoa.